Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Ephesians Verse by Verse, brought to you by co-founder of Telios, Dr. William Stewart. This captivating podcast will not only teach you the book of Ephesians, which tells us so much about Christ and his mission, as well as our Christian walk, but it will teach you how to study the Bible, so you can have confidence in what you learn. Episodes will provide key points for each important verse of the book of Ephesians. Thanks for joining us on this exciting biblical journey in Ephesians. To listen to all episodes, please visit our website, teliosresearch.com, TELIOSRESEARCH. Thank you.
Hello again, I'm William Stewart, co-founder of Telios. Welcome back to this verse-by-verse study on the book of Ephesians. We're in chapter 2 in a very interesting section regarding Israel and the Gentiles, and how God dealt with them separately in the Old Testament, but now how that has changed in the New Testament. So we talked about in verse 10 last time how the Jews had the right of circumcision, otherwise the sign of God, of their covenant to them, that where the Gentiles did not. And in the past, thus they were separated from the Jews who had the advantages of a close relationship with God, being their chosen people. So the circumcision was made by hands, the removal of the foreskin. We know in the New Testament there's a circumcision not made by hands in Colossians 2 that is done with the regeneration by the Holy Spirit when somebody comes to faith. So in verse 12, where we are this time, Paul gives a little bit more of explanation of the advantages that the Jews had in the Old Testament. So the Gentiles at that time were without Christ. So how does that mean? Because Christ had not come yet in the Old Testament. Well, that could be taken in several ways. There were appearances of what were thought were Christ, 18 appearances of the angel of Jehovah in the Old Testament. And Christ was in the cloud also above the Israelites as they moved through the desert. So Christ was present and had a ministry. But also the teachings of Messiah, the prophecy, the symbolism of the law and the high priest and his vestments, the feast days, all symbolizing the ministry of Messiah who would come and take away their sin, the Jews' sin. The Gentiles were missing that as well. So all that good information, they were a part where the Jews had that and that advantage. So they were aliens. They were outside the camp, the commonwealth, it says in the verse. I should read the verse, and that at the time ye were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. So being aliens, they were outside the commonwealth. The word in there in Greek is really where we get the word politics in English now, politia, and the covenants. What were the covenants? Well, the covenants were the promises to Israel by God that he would fulfill, no matter what. They were dependent upon him. Most of them were permanent. I would say there are probably 7 covenants, and this is controversial, 4 which are most important. The primary covenant is the covenant to Abraham, which promised salvation through Messiah to the whole world, that he would be a father of a great nation, meaning Israel, and then the promise of a son, Isaac, which I think was a sign that Abraham received in his lifetime, a sign that God would fulfill the other 2, that he would bring Messiah, a blessing to all people, and he'd be a father of a great nation. So follow along from this is the covenant to Moses, the Mosaic covenant, which is a temporary covenant until Christ came. The law was discontinued when Christ came, Romans 10:4. And then the Davidic covenant, the covenant with David, that he would have a permanent throne and it would be inhabited permanently. And this person would be Messiah, 2 Samuel 7:14. and the surrounding verses. Last covenant is the new covenant, which is basically when Christ reigns. And that's also a permanent covenant along with the Davidic covenant. So Israel knew about these promises. They had the promises that they would have a kingdom that would give them peace, that would be ruled by Messiah, and that the Israelites, or excuse me, the Gentiles at that time were not included. So the Gentiles then, as it says, had no hope, and they were without God in the world. All these promises given to the Jews, and the benefits of the temple worship, God's presence, God's leading, the promises, they did not have primarily. Now they could have come to faith and become a practicing Jew, but they also had to get that information. Now the Jews were supposed to go out and give that information, and they did not do such a good job of that in the Old Testament. But God managed to spread that information anyway. We know from Psalm 19:4, the line, the noise, that information had gone out to the whole earth. We know that Nineveh at that time received the gospel from Jonah, the largest, most powerful city in the world at the time, at the capital of the Assyrian Empire. So those are several examples. We know that the Queen of the South, Sheba, knew about Solomon and came to hear his wisdom, as another example of God's ministry and mercy to the Gentiles in the Old Testament. So they did receive that information. It was harder to receive. The Jews had the advantage, and that's the wrap of verse 12. Now that will come into 13 and 14, how God has joined together these two groups through Christ, and then of course joined them both to Christ. So don't miss that. That's the important information. Please join me next time. I'll look forward to seeing you then. Goodbye for now.